Eddie Howe has left Newcastle. Was lining up for this show thinking we've got FIFA, we've got transfers, and then bang, Eddie Howe leaves Newcastle. Very, very interesting and fascinating timing, I've got to say. Initial reactions. Again, we're in a similar vein to the FIFA thing. Not surprised, probably, is the...
No, the surprising thing is the timing. I mean, given the season that Newcastle had, and I think I didn't see Newcastle a huge amount, but every time I did see them, Eddie Howe was either berating the players, never a good sign when it's public, or berating himself, never a good sign when you're a manager. And so, given that they ended with an absolute whimper, you would have probably put money on Eddie Howe being one of the first managers to leave post the end of the season. And the fact he's hung on till we're almost in August makes you think, he probably has had to do a lot of thinking about his future. And he's come down on the side of, no, it's not worth it, I'm going. But yeah, I'd almost got to the point where I thought, well, he's not gone yet, he'll probably stay, because it's the timing. The timing is a strange thing. Him leaving is not a strange thing. And he wants, I think, something along the lines of a period of self-reflection and a rest from the game. I would say it's a pity he didn't have that period of self-reflection before joining a club owned by Saudi Arabia Investment Fund.
Reactions, chaps?
I wonder if he's had all this sort of thinking time, or whether he's just realised that they're selling all their best players. You know, when they sold Isak last year, they sold Tonali, they sold Anthony Gordon. It looks like they're going to sell Bruno Guimaraes as well to Arsenal.
Yeah. Got Lewis Hall being linked pretty strongly with Manchester United for about a week or so now.
So if you're Eddie Howe and you sort of see what happened last season, and they finished 12th, was it in the end? It was the table, and sort of sinking quite fast in the second half of the season. Then I think you look at it and you think, do I really want to go into this season, with a team that's much worse than the one last year? I mean, I think generally, if you look at it more broad sweep, like he's been there, 5 years? And I think people tend to think, clearly there are exceptions, but that is a very good stint in the Premier League. Yeah. And there comes a point, I think, with every manager. I mean, I know Iraola thinks this, that actually 2 or 3 years is basically the maximum you can do. It's a cycle at the moment, at big clubs in Europe. And maybe after 5 years, the club needs a breath of fresh air. I know probably that the main narrative here will be that it's going to be a huge loss for Newcastle. And I think that is very true. And it looks to me like a team who are going into the season at this point, if you depart with your manager at this point, so close with the players who have gone, like it's really not a good, start for Newcastle, is it? But maybe longer term, maybe they do need someone new and a fresh face.
I think he's done an absolutely phenomenal job as Newcastle manager. So from a pure football management point of view, since he was appointed, Newcastle are 5th in the Premier League for points won, and they're fractionally behind Aston Villa. Yeah. Actually, a much better goal difference than Aston Villa in that time period. Above Manchester United, above Chelsea. In the season and a half before Eddie Howe was appointed, out of the ever-present Premier League teams, they were 16th out of 17 for points won.
Wow.
I think he's done an absolutely phenomenal job. Do you think... and from his point of view of his career as well, he left Bournemouth sort of, slightly kind of under a bit of a question mark over, they'd obviously got relegated. Could he, they'd
never beat the big
played
teams.
Some good attacking football, but,
always lose 5-0 against Manchester City.
Could he really organise a defence?
Yeah.
And from the point of view of his career, obviously leaving aside questions of, whether he should have gone to a club owned by the Saudi Arabian investment vehicle. But purely from the point of view of his career as a football manager, I think he's done an outstanding job. And it'll be very interesting to see what he does next, because I think he's a really, really good manager. Do
you think there's part of that with it where it's a reputation preservation, maybe?
Yes, it's a good time to get out, definitely.
It's a time to get out where, as Tom says, a lot of these players are leaving, and that actually he leaves generally despite that finish towards the end of last season. I think most people would agree with James. Would you guys agree that overall Eddie Howe leaves Newcastle with everyone going, good manager? Eddie Howe's a good manager.
Oh, he's a very good manager, and I'd like him to be England manager.
Right.
And maybe that'll happen. An Englishman leading England, that'd be lovely.
Yeah.
It does seem extraordinary that by his account there wasn't even any contact from the FA with him.
Yeah. But maybe there would be. But also, as my stat highlights, there's changes coming, Eddie. There's jobs coming up. There'll be jobs coming up, won't there? I mean, there will. I'm being flippant, but by November, by December, maybe by February, there'll be a big job, a job as big as Newcastle, maybe bigger. But he's had a bit of time out. he'd be a contender for, would he not?
Yeah, I mean, if you are the chairman of a club, he's going to be on the top of your list of candidates, simply because if you look at what he inherited, there was, when the Saudis took over Newcastle, there was this belief, it didn't end up being true, but because people didn't really understand how profit and sustainability rules worked. But there was a belief that they were going to spend billions of pounds on players and they were going to become this superpower. And that was the backdrop to his early career at Newcastle was, wow, Eddie Howe, he's going to have a treasure chest. What's he going to do with it? It's going to be fun. In the end, they were very limited on what they could spend. So he had to deal not only with an average amount of money to play with to build a squad, but he had to deal with those dampened expectations. That's quite a difficult thing to navigate. He also had to navigate a lot of people saying, "Ooh, why are you going? Politically, this isn't great, is it? A Saudi club owning an English institution." But he made it. On the whole, he made it work. He got them into the Champions League. He won them their first piece of silverware in 70 odd years. He did all that the Newcastle fans yearned for.
Yeah.
And I think probably, Tom is right. There comes a point where you can't squeeze any more out of the players you've got. You become jaded. And he'd started to sound jaded as well. Like he doubted himself. It was like he wasn't sure after yet another the trends would emerge. Like they were incapable of holding on to a lead. That speaks to what they planned before the game not being executed on the pitch, because they get a bit like England in the World Cup. You get a bit defensive after you've taken the lead. Their away form, that spoke also of the fact that sometimes they got over the line simply because the atmosphere at St James's Park was so fantastic. And you counter that by being a fresh face in the dressing room, someone who's got the players on side. But I think he ran out of ideas on how to refresh them week in, week out. So he's clearly decided, I need to be refreshed. But all his cohort of work and what he's had to deal with, I think makes him a really good candidate for a big club or the England job.
They didn't refresh the team either, did they? I mean, that's kind of the key. I think you look at those long managers who do so well over a long period of time. They keep that evolution and those signings. You have that. We know what the Eddie Howe Newcastle team is, and what the identity is, and that's credit to him. It's a very physical team, aggressive, hard to play against. But then you look at last summer, the signings of Baltamada, Ilanga, Visser, those three, none of them really came off, and you think if you're selling Isak and you have all that money, what Eddie Howe needed in that, moment was for 2 or 3 signings to come in and give a real injection of enthusiasm and energy to the new team. That just hasn't happened. It's never felt like Newcastle have taken the next step, to move it on.
I think he found the Isak thing quite difficult as well to handle. I mean,
the fact that it dragged on so long.
It went on for a long time, and navigating that politically and putting the public face on it, and whether having to say, oh no, we want him, oh no, we're letting him go. I mean, it makes you look weak. Yeah. It's difficult.
Reports that Matthias Jaissle, a German coach who's been in charge of Al Ahly in Saudi Arabia since 2023, has been lined up to take over from Eddie Howe. Newcastle fans on the playing side will be worried about all the departures, won't they? And the fact that, as Alyson said earlier, we're nearly in August, season begins in 3 weeks. I'd be worried if I was a Newcastle fan, wouldn't you, at the state of the club going into this season? I
think Jaissle is quite an exciting appointment.
Do you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
why so?
He's a young coach who's come through the kind of Red Bull pathway. So he managed Liefering, which is one of the kind of feeder clubs in that chain, and took them to their highest finish in the Austrian Bundesliga, took them to second place. He had a good spell at Red Bull Salzburg. And he's now been at Al Ahly in the Saudi League, which I can't say I follow closely, but I think he's won 2 consecutive Asian Champions Leagues with them. Yeah. So I think I think it's fair to say that he's quite an exciting appointment in the sense that he's had a quite promising career so far, and he's not one of the sort of same old tried and trusted kind of carousel of faces. I think he's probably quite a good choice for where they are now, which is that I think the squad has been weakened. There's no getting around it. And I think he'll be young, and I think he'll come in with quite a lot of energy and intensity, which is probably what they need, because they're now kind of in a rebuild, aren't they? Basically,
yeah.
So I think he's quite an exciting appointment.
It's a risk though, and I think James is right. He's young and he's from the kind of Red Bull model. He's done some good things, and people think that exciting. And you can imagine some of the, maybe let's call them sort of lower mid-table clubs, if they took a risk like this, you might say, well, it's a really smart, interesting appointment, Brighton or Palace or Fulham or something. For Newcastle, a team who've just been in the Champions League, to me, it's a risk, and if you're going into Premier League season, as someone who covered Tottenham last year, you can be a very big name in the Premier League, but if you haven't got established players, you haven't got an established coach, and it doesn't work for, 2 or 3 months, you can be in trouble, quite quickly. This Premier League now, it's a cliche to say it, but there are no gimmies, and all the way down the league is quality. Even if you're a big name club like Newcastle, if you've got a squad that basically they're going to be on the training ground this week thinking, what on earth is going on here? Like, our best players have left. The manager who we all really like has gone. A new guy's coming in who, in truth, not many of us know much about.
Yeah.
That's not a good place to be starting a Premier League season in.